in your case, you know, the gun, yes, that's a hard fact, but there's other things that have to be looked at also.
Well, on a subject, Jim, maybe we should talk about that a little bit. Time and time again, I've seen, I know you have, and about fingerprints, and on TV they'll find a fingerprint and, oh, we know who that is. That's Johnny Bag of Donuts down the street and we'll go lasso him. Is that basically how it works? Or can you take one fingerprint and send it off to Washington and it comes back and they say, oh, yeah, that's this guy?
It's extremely difficult when you have a latent fingerprint and you don't know who your suspect is. That latent print has to be compared against an inked impression from a previous arrest. However, recently the FBI has what's called an AFIS system, Automated Identification System. They can put that fingerprint into a machine and it scans all the points, the minutiae. And prior to that being received, they have put hundreds of thousands of fingerprints in there. And when they put that latent fingerprint in there, it will search maybe a million and a half fingerprints in several hours. And if the fingerprint of the suspect is in there, it will kick out as what they call a hit. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they'll call you on the phone and advise you, and then they'll follow up with the paperwork. And they've been breaking a lot of cases with that. Cases that are 10, 15 years old. They found at a crime scene a latent fingerprint, and it just laid in the file, and they worked on it and worked on it. And then since this automated fingerprint identification system was put in, they're getting a lot of hits.
With the fingerprints too, are we? I'm familiar somewhat with the AFIS system from seeing a lot of documentation, reading a lot of articles. But before that, do they still? Let me ask you this: do they still do a human comparison? Does an examiner still look at those prints to do the final?
Yes.
Comparison. So it still comes down to the machine kind of narrows it down, but then somebody.
Yes. The machine will narrow it down, well, it could be 10, 15, 20, 25 possibles. Mm-hmm. Then your fingerprint technician or operator has to sit down and do a visual on it.
Okay. Let me just take this call here. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Would you give us your name and your question, please?
Yeah, my name's Bill. My question is, how long have any of those men searched for a murder weapon, and is there like a record for criminal science in searching for a murder weapon?
Well, you mean for how long a time?
Yeah, like how long a time, days, weeks, months?
Good question. Let's find out.
Okay, thanks. I'll listen.
Okay, Bill. If I understand the question right, I think he's asking about an actual real time period, how long we've been looking for
any particular weapon. Yeah. Do you remember what the longest time you spent on a crime scene looking for?
On a crime scene? The longest crime scene I can remember is about 10 days, actually, at the crime scene itself. We found numerous weapons at that one. But I know that there's cases out there where we have never recovered a weapon. Mm-hmm. We know one was used. That can be several years, right, actually looking for a weapon.
Yeah, we have cases where we'll use teams like the state police scuba team to check for weapons, and we may not find out that weapon was dumped, let's say, in a lake for months after the crime, and then the scuba team go on. So actually, we're trying to find a weapon, but after several weeks, if you don't find it in a certain area and you have no other information, then you just kind of sometimes have to wait, see if it turns up, or if we then later on get information, maybe use a scuba team to check for it.
I would like to point one thing out. I don't know why Bill asked the question, but just to let him know that it can be several years before we find a weapon that still has valuable evidence on it.
And even without the weapon, as you stated, I'm thinking back. I remember a murder case in Ocean Township where they never did recover the handgun that was used and the guy was still convicted. So it's not like if you don't have it, you don't get a conviction. As a matter of fact, in Monmouth County, not so much weapons, which might be interesting to the caller, was, if I'm not mistaken, the first case ever that they tried a guy for murder without a body. If I'm not mistaken, was it Atlantic Highlands case, wasn't it?
I believe up in that area, yes.
And then there was a second one not that long ago, a couple of years ago, that I was involved in, where they also didn't have a body. I think the guy pled, which made it a whole lot easier. But the original case, so I guess you can make a case to a jury sometimes without even the most basic of evidence, which would be a body in a homicide case. I hope that answers your question. I guess you hung up, but I'm sure you're still watching. And if not, call us back and we'll try another one. Jim, we were talking about the fingerprints. There's a lot of different ways that every day are coming out of the woodwork. As a matter of fact, I was watching a show the other day, Innovation, I think it is. It's a science program on one of the public stations, and they did a whole show on forensics where they were talking about different ways in cyanoacrylate and certain things like that. If you want to touch just on a few of those that have come around in the last couple of years, and obviously you've been looking at fingerprints for a good many years, a lot longer than I have, that's for sure. Longer than I had fingerprints.
There's basic ways to find fingerprints. You can use powders, you can use fumes, you can use liquids, and you can use lasers. And now our unit's looking into a laser, and we're searching for which one would serve us the best, and that'll open up a lot of doors for us.
Now, Ocean County, their sheriff's department, who actually does their criminalistics laboratory work, they do have a laser.
Ocean County does have a laser, yes.
And I think we had those guys on one of the shows. And as I understood it from what they were talking, it's a lot to do with enhancement. I think, Glenn, we were talking about that before, as opposed to just like pointing the laser at the ceiling and expecting fingerprints to like shoot out at you. It's more of a method to aid your vision of where the prints might be able to be developed.
That's right.
We have another call. People are interested in this. I knew it. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Would you give us your name and your question, please?
My name is Jimmy. I live in Lakewood. A young lady was cut. She had about 42 stitches in the face. And the lady that did the cutting, they didn't find a weapon. And they give her $2,000 bail. Don't you think that was kind of soft?
Well, although that doesn't deal directly with forensics, let me say this. Bail in any case is to ensure that someone will appear in court. It's not, it can't be used as punitive. Now, if someone, in especially some murder cases, is demonstrated to be a danger to society, the judges can hold them without bail.
Right.
But if somebody, let's say you lived in town for 20 years, you've lived in the same house, everybody in town pretty much knows you, you may have less bail set on you, a condition being, obviously, that you don't have any contact with that victim before the court, and if they did, then that would revoke the bail and they'd be able to place the person in jail. But that is a good question, because a lot of people ask me that. How come they don't put higher amounts of bail? And basically, it's just to guarantee they're going to appear in court. And if I'm reasonably certain, if I'm the judge, and that's who's setting bail in those cases, if I'm reasonably certain that person isn't going to take off and is going to show up in court, then it's not a prerequisite for me to set an unreasonably high bail, because there is a constitutional right to be able to reasonableness in those areas, and it's been tested in court.
Right.
All right, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay.
All right, thanks for calling. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Could we have your name and your question, please?
Yeah, my name's Vern. I'm from Jackson, and the question I have is just how much training do you have for this kind of forensic study when you're out on the scene?
Good question. Different people have different things, and we'll kind of go around the room and find out. Bruce?
Well, it's more, I think it starts more with an interest. You have to have an interest in the sciences, have an interest in biology, chemistry, physics, a lot of physics. You don't necessarily have to study those in a formal environment, but you have to have a real interest in those. Personally, I was a pre-med student, and I changed my area of interest, sort of tossed between engineering and medicine, and in a roundabout way I wound up in law enforcement. And this is sort of like the best of all worlds. It's law enforcement, it's the sciences, it's challenging, and it's a puzzle all the time, and it's very rewarding when things work smoothly. But as far as the training, there's no set standards really right now that says you have to have X number of credits and you have to have X number of degrees. It's mostly the internal desire to do a job like this, and you pick up your basic training, and then you also pick up training on the job or in-service training as the need arises. Jimmy?
Jim?
I was trained by the state police, and they have a continual in-training program going on all the time. They have cubicle training where you work with a person in the State Bureau of Identification. They work with you in the field. Then after a while, when they feel that you're ready, why, they turn you loose and you're qualified.
One of the basic courses we like to attend when we start in a unit or have someone new start in a unit is there's a 6-week identification school given by the New Jersey State Police, which a lot of local officers have attended. And it gives you your basics on fingerprint identification and photography, video, and how to do the basic crime scene work. Again, it's all basics. It's a 6-week course. And from there, we have to build on specialized courses. There are many specialized courses given by the state police and government agencies and private agencies, and a lot of on-the-job training that we either pick up on our own by reading or just going out and doing. And there's got to be a lot of self-interest in this job because a lot of the training you have to bring on yourself.
Well, and just to add to that, training, to me, I have a real interest in training, and it just never ends. Every day I walk into that police department, and I know it's the same for you guys, you learn something. And I might learn from somebody that just came out of the police academy that day. I may learn something from somebody who's been around a long time. I might work on a case with Jimmy and get some valuable experiences from him on doing fingerprints. All the schools that Glenn mentioned, I went to individually, and I went with Bruce to the fingerprint school, the FBI's fingerprint school. And it was real interesting, but unless I had an interest to it, I never would have taken to it. It's technical, it's confusing, you have to keep up on it, but there were guys who I know went to the class that were just there because they were sent, and they probably wouldn't get involved in comparing fingerprints, but somebody who had an interest in it definitely would and would keep involved in it.
Glenn and I just went out and spent a week with the Philadelphia PD, their forensic unit. And the first night we arrived, they had one suspicious death, which they thought was a homicide initially. Then we had 2 homicides after that. And we watched how they work. And we picked up some tips and some information, little things that they do that really helped us out. The second night we were there, we had, what, 3 homicides, Glenn?
Yeah, 3 homicides.
3 homicides. And you spend a week there, you can get a lot of experience.
Yeah, I would imagine so. You also get a lot of stories.
Yeah,
which Glenn's going to give us
No,
one?
I was going to say that the nice thing about it, even though they were a big city and they see more homicides in a year than maybe we'll see in 5 years, they were able to pick up some tips from us, which they had never thought of. And like you say, from the youngest patrolman to the guy that's got 30 years on a job, you can always learn something. And they picked up some stuff from us, and of course we picked up some stuff from them, which was nice to share the information.
Sir, does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, very good.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Happy.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, too.
Good show.
Thank you. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Would you give us your name and your question, please? Did you go away?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, I got a question for Mr. Jim Burns there.
Certainly.
Jim, being in the Marine Corps, did that help you at all in what you're doing now? Because this is a fellow Marine, and if I told you my name, you'd really be laughing.
He's not going to have to get up and sing like the Marine hymn or something now, is he?
Oh, yes, anybody, hey, there wasn't a better Marine than Jimmy Burns.
Obviously, it's nobody you know.
It's Jesse Poller, Jimmy.
Must be a friend of mine. No, the Marine Corps didn't help me at all.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
It's Rocky Al-Vadati.
I'll get even with you, Rocky.
Oh, we always end with a smile, though, here at NJ.
Yes, that's Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Hi, you're on NJ Law. Could you give us your name and your question, please?
Yeah, this is George from Manalapan.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, what was the most difficult case forensically you ever solved or you worked on?
Good question.
We have a few minutes to think about this. Initially, they're all difficult. There are a few come to mind. One of them was an individual who, in an industrial accident, was, I guess you'd say, destroyed to beyond recognition. And part of our job is to identify that person. It's part of our duty to identify that person. And through a lot of effort on a lot of people's parts, he was identified. And through fingerprints, through a partial fingerprint. One of the team members, a state trooper, found part of a finger, and the fellow had a prior arrest, and he made a comparison, and we identified the fellow. That was very difficult from a forensic point of view. We've had other cases where the real whodunits, and it's confusing to everybody, not just forensically, but to everybody. But that was about the toughest one I've been on forensically. You know.
How about a homicide case? What comes to mind?
Be a case out of Allenhurst. It was a very difficult case, a double homicide. We knew he had bodies somewhere, but initially we didn't know where they were. They turned up in Pennsylvania, which presents problems because it's another jurisdiction, and the distance between the scene and where the bodies were found. And then we needed to find the people who committed the crime, which the fellows in Major Crimes finally did. That was a long scene. That was a 10-day scene at the house. And we had missing parts that we couldn't work with, but we knew had been there at one time. When we found them later, we had to plug them into the crime scene somehow. So that was a difficult case.
Jim, do you remember?
No, I just can't recall. They're all
all
pretty
puzzles.
interesting.
That was good.
They're all
Good answer,
puzzles.
Jim. See how he got out of that? Glenn?
Well, they all start out difficult because you never, have all the answers. I'd have to say, off the top of my head, one of the more difficult ones we had was a case out of Manalapan Township where a dentist killed his wife, and again, it was a situation where the body was removed from the scene and actually dumped in Pennsylvania, and which doesn't help us any, not having the body at the scene. And we were lucky enough to work with the police in Pennsylvania, and when they brought back evidence from the scene in Pennsylvania, we were lucky enough to match it up from evidence that we located at the house, and also went back at a later date after the initial crime scene several days later and did a blood analysis like I showed you the kid on the truck, and were able to find blood patterns in the house which actually refuted the statements that the man had made about what had happened in the house, and we kind of feel that helped break that case. Also, prove that he was lying. So anytime you can prove somebody's lying, it does mess up their story, and it helps.
Certainly does. Oh, he went away. Hopefully, sir, that answers your question to our last caller. And once again, folks, 681-3330 is our phone number here, 3330. And if you'd like to call us, feel free. We're just having a wonderful little chat here. Right, guys?
Fireside.
Certainly.
Jim, how old are you if you're the oldest?
39.
39, good.
Third time around.
Third time around.
What I feel today, Kevin, what I feel today is most of this investigation work is a team thing. There's no one man usually that runs out and solves it. You have 5, 10, 15, 20 detectives pounding the streets. You've got 4 or 5 forensic men working the scene. You work with other towns. People have information that you don't have. They may even have equipment that you have to borrow. So the day, many years ago when I was a young cop, where the guys said, "This is my town, don't come in." Those days are gone. You can't function alone today.
And that's a point well said, Jim. I'm glad you brought it up, because that's basically what we've been talking about here is that team concept. And when you think back on it, I'm sure you guys, the wheels are spinning, because my wheels are spinning too. You think about cases that you've worked on, and it was like somebody just saying the simplest little thing to you about something that you were trying to figure out, and then everything starts coming together, and then everybody gets to a blackboard or something, putting puzzles together. And that's basically what we do for a living. How about new scientific stuff? You guys, is anything like really exciting you this week? DNA or anything like that you've seen that's looks like? I guess when fingerprints came out in the early part of the late part of the 1800s to 1900s, I guess that was a big deal. Is there something now that you're saying, well, here's the next thing after fingerprints?
I think you hit it on the head. It's the DNA, fingerprinting.
Yeah, that's.
And where do we stand with that in Monmouth County? I mean, can we do that?
I understand the state police is setting up a unit now.
Mm-hmm. FBI is going. They're up and running. Although there's a couple of problems involved with that. They're limited on the evidence that they accept, and it really delays the turnaround time getting the results from the lab, because it's a very technical examination. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and I saw something on that the other day too when I was watching that same show, and I forgot how long they say it takes, but I know it's a very expensive procedure, and they certainly don't want every case that we come across coming down there. But if we really,
well, that's
really
the problem. I mean, everybody that you get a bar fight, they're going to want to collect blood samples from the bar floor and send it off to the FBI and do a DNA analysis, see who it came from, or and you can't do that. They have to limit it.
Get a nasty gram from J. Edgar.
Yes, you would.
Oh, you guys think he's not there anymore?
Yeah, he's still there.
I'd like to make a comment, though. Jimmy was talking and everything. I've been with the prosecutor's office doing this type of work for 10 years now, and it still amazes me that the cooperation and the talent that Monmouth County has in law enforcement and their fire services. And it just, every time we go to another jurisdiction or we work with another group, everybody's there, wants to help. They want to do things right. They want to be a team member. They don't want to be the shining star, but they want to be part of the team that helps solve the problem, to find the bad guy and put him away so he doesn't do it again, or to help the victim find out how a person became a victim. There's a lot of talent in this county. There's a lot of people that deserve a lot of credit in both police and fire, and it's amazing.
On that note, let me just grab this call here. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Would you give us your name and your question, please?
Oh, hello. This is Frances from Interlaken.
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Sergeant Quinn, I find your program most informative. I think it makes one feel closer to our law enforcement, to our own policemen and our own communities. And your three guests were excellent.
Especially the Irish guy in the middle, right?
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you much. I think we're winding down. Anybody have any idea how much time we have left?
6 minutes.
6. Oh, that many.
Six, oh, that's not.
Then we're in good shape. What I wanted to talk about is two things. Number one, I know you guys work really closely with the medical examiner, and in Monmouth County, I guess we're lucky enough. Do we have? Thank you. In Monmouth County, do we have forensic pathologists?
Yes.
Yes.
And just so everybody knows who's watching, before the show, driving here, I was saying, we all know the word forensic, and we see it on TV, and everybody watched Quincy and everything else. What does that mean? So I grabbed the dictionary, and I remember forensics in high school, and that was the debating people. But basically, that's what it comes down to, bringing facts for discussion in front of a court. So that settles that. And forensic pathologists do that with evidence having to do with people who are formerly deceased and still deceased.
Presently deceased.
How, if somebody dies of anything other than natural causes in Monmouth County, an autopsy is performed, which is a post-mortem examination.
Right.
In most cases. How do you guys get involved in that? Obviously, you're not in there doing. You guys don't do autopsies in the back of that truck.
No.
But what happens with that?
Well, we collect evidence, as Bruce mentioned originally when you asked him what we do. And in a homicide scene, when we have a body, the body is the biggest piece of evidence, and the body will always tell us a story. And it's a truthful story, and a lot of evidence is contained within and around the body. Our job, one of our more gruesome parts of our job, I guess, considered by a lot of people, is to attend the autopsies. And we assist the pathologist when he is performing the autopsy. We will take pictures at the autopsy, which are later used in court. And also, we're there to collect evidence. We're there to visually see evidence if there's something in the body that is not removed. And in the case of like a gunshot wound or a knife attack, if the tip of the blade were to break off the knife, we'd collect that. Or the expended bullet, the round of ammunition that's left in the body, the bullet would be collected by the pathologist and then turned over to us, and we would collect it as evidence.
Let me just take this last call real quick, because I think they closed the phone lines on us. Hi, you're on NJ Law. Could you give us your name and your question, please?
Hi, my name is Margie. I'm from Ocean Grove, and I'd like to know if any of the guys, once they got to the crime scene, if they ever knew the victim or the suspect, and if they did, what was their first reaction?
Good question.
Personally, I don't remember ever being the one where I knew the victim.
No.
Glenn?
No.
I'll tell you, personally, that's happened to me because I work in a town where a lot of times you might know a lot of the people in town, and you might go on a case, and you actually know the people from maybe past contact with them, one form or another. And I remember at least I think 2 homicides where I knew both the victim and the actor or the person who perpetrated it. It's hard when you know the people, but we have a tendency to try to remove ourselves from it. I know these guys who go to a lot of post-examinations I've been to. You can't sit through something like that if you really think about exactly what's going on. You have to do your job. You're involved in collecting evidence and doing what you're trained to do and thinking about everything else later. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And none of these jobs, and I'm sure all you guys would agree with me, it's something we do for a living. It's something we think we do well, but it's nothing that we enjoy seeing other people in pain. It's just unheard of in the police field. I think we're winding down to the end of the show, if I'm not mistaken. And what I want to do is take a moment to thank Lieutenant Newman, Jimmy Burns, and Glenn Meyers for coming down, taking time out from their schedule, bring down the van, which was extremely interesting. Hopefully everybody who tuned in and watched thought so too. Keep watching and let us know. And from myself, my guests, God bless. Keep yourselves out of trouble, please, and drive carefully. And see you next time. And Merry Christmas, because we won't be on until after that.